You think you know someone, right? You spend years with them, share a home, trust them with everything. Your secrets, your fears, your heart. But what if the person you've trusted the most is hiding something so dark that it could tear everything apart? What if that trust was built on a lie, and the person you thought you knew was capable of something unspeakable? This is the story of Kate and Mark, a couple who, on the surface, had the perfect marriage. But behind closed doors, a chilling secret was slowly unraveling, and when the truth came to light, it left everyone in disbelief. Mark's disappearance was the catalyst, but the discovery of his body would reveal a truth that no one could have expected. This is the shocking, twisted tale of how a wife panicked when the police found her husband's hidden body, and how she thought she could get away with murder. Mark and Kate had always been the epitome of the perfect couple. Married for over a decade, they seemed to have it all: a beautiful house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, 2 children, and an enviable life that everyone around them admired. Kate was the perfect wife, warm, charming, always smiling, and her home was always pristine. Mark, a successful businessman, was often away for work, but when he was home, he showered his family with affection. The couple's life seemed idyllic, but appearances can be deceiving. While they were living the picture-perfect life on the outside, things weren't so rosy behind closed doors. Over the past year, there had been a noticeable shift in their relationship. Mark had been spending more and more time away on business trips, leaving Kate alone with the children. Kate's behavior became more erratic, her once bubbly personality giving way to a cold, distant version of herself. She had become increasingly secretive, constantly on her phone, never explaining where she was going, even when Mark was home. The tension between them grew. There were nights when Mark would return home from his trips, only to find Kate behaving strangely, nervous, on edge, and always avoiding eye contact. Mark began to feel something wasn't right, but he couldn't put his finger on it. And then, one night, Mark made a decision that would ultimately change everything. One evening, Mark returned home earlier than expected from one of his business trips. As he stepped into the house, he immediately noticed how quiet everything was. The kids were at a neighbor's house, and Kate was nowhere to be found. As he walked through the house, everything seemed normal, except for a strange feeling in the air, like something was lurking just beneath the surface. Mark's instincts told him something was off. He didn't know exactly what it was, but he needed to find out. His eyes drifted toward the small camera he had installed in their living room just a few weeks before. It wasn't that he didn't trust Kate, but after the past few months of her strange behavior, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. Mark pulled out his phone and checked the live feed from the camera. At first, everything seemed fine. Kate was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels. But then, something caught his eye. The timestamp was late, well past midnight. Kate stood up, looking around nervously, before walking toward the cupboard under the stairs. She opened it and pulled out something wrapped in a dark cloth. Mark's heart pounded in his chest as he watched, his mind racing with questions. What was she hiding? What was in that cloth? Why was she acting so strangely? The footage didn't end there. Kate hurried toward the basement door, her eyes darting around the room before she disappeared from view. Mark's breath quickened. His mind was flooded with confusion and fear. What had she done? Why was she hiding something in the basement? Was there something darker going on? Mark's suspicion grew, and his need for answers grew stronger. He knew he had to act quickly, but his business commitments kept him away. Every second that ticked by felt like an eternity. Mark felt like he was losing control, and the more he thought about it, the more he realized, whatever was happening in his home, it was far worse than he could ever imagine. When Mark returned home a few days later, he was more determined than ever to confront Kate. He couldn't ignore the footage he had seen, the unease in her movements, the way she checked over her shoulder as if someone was watching. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Kate greeted him as she always did, her warm smile greeting him at the door. But Mark could see right through it. Her eyes weren't the same. There was something behind them, something she was hiding. He had no idea what it was, but he was certain it wasn't good. Without wasting any time, Mark asked her about the footage he had seen. He didn't accuse her directly, but simply asked what was going on. "Kate, I saw you in the living room the other night," he said, keeping his voice calm. "What was in that cloth? And why were you acting so strange?" Kate froze. For a split second, her eyes widened in fear, and then her face twisted into a forced smile. "Oh, Mark, you're overthinking things," she replied, her voice shaky. "I was just cleaning up. You know how I am sometimes." Mark didn't buy it. She was lying. He could feel it in his gut. He pressed her further, asking again about the cloth and why she was in the basement so late at night. Kate's demeanor shifted again, this time to one of defensiveness. "There's nothing wrong, Mark. Stop looking for problems where there are none," she snapped, clearly uncomfortable. But Mark wasn't going to let it go. His heart raced as he thought back to the footage, to the way Kate had acted, her eyes darting around nervously, her voice filled with tension. Something was wrong, and Kate wasn't telling him the truth. Days passed, and Mark's suspicions only grew stronger. His mind raced with questions, and the footage haunted him. What was she hiding? What was in the basement? Finally, Mark made a decision. He was going to confront Kate once and for all. No more dancing around the truth. He had to know what she had been doing behind his back. One night, after Kate had gone to bed, Mark quietly grabbed a flashlight and made his way to the basement. The house was eerily quiet, and the only sound was the soft creaking of the floorboards under his feet. As he reached the basement door, his heart raced. He could feel the weight of the moment. This was it. He was about to uncover the truth. Mark opened the basement door, and the faint smell of damp earth hit his nose. He stepped inside, his flashlight illuminating the shadows. Everything seemed still, except for the patch of recently disturbed earth near the back wall. Mark knelt down, his hands shaking as he began to dig. With each shovelful of dirt he removed, the dread in his chest grew. Then, finally, he found it. Wrapped in a plastic sheet and buried under the dirt was the unmistakable shape of a body. His stomach lurched as the truth hit him like a punch to the gut. The body wasn't just any body, it was Mark's body. His mind couldn't process what he was seeing. His legs went weak, and he staggered back, nearly falling to the floor. He didn't know what to say, how to react. His wife, the woman he had loved and trusted, had murdered him. As the reality of the situation set in, Kate's voice echoed from behind him. "Mark, what are you doing?" she asked, her tone cold and panicked. Mark turned slowly, his eyes wide with shock. She stood there in the doorway, her face pale, her hands trembling. "What have you done?" he whispered, his voice breaking. Kate didn't try to deny it. The moment Mark looked at her, his eyes full of disbelief, she knew there was no turning back. She collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Her entire body shook with guilt, regret, and fear. It was all over. The perfect life they had built together, gone. The lies she had told, the cover-ups, the manipulation, it was all about to be exposed. Through her tears, Kate finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I could fix it, fix everything." She looked at Mark, her eyes filled with shame. "I never wanted this, but I couldn't take it anymore. The money problems, the affair. I was desperate." Mark stood there, frozen in disbelief. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. She had killed him, his own wife had murdered him and buried his body in the basement. He couldn't wrap his mind around it. How could she have done this? "Why?" Kate continued, explaining the affair she had been having with a man Mark didn't even know. She had become involved with him after their finances started spiraling, and her desperation for a way out led her to the unthinkable, killing her husband. She had planned it all, making sure to hide his body in the basement and hope that the police would never find it. Kate was arrested the following day. The news of her arrest shocked the community. Friends, family, and neighbors who had known the couple for years couldn't believe what had happened. How could Kate, the loving wife and mother, be capable of such violence? It didn't make sense. Her trial was long and drawn out, covered extensively by the media. Kate's defense was weak. She had no real excuse for her actions, only the sobbing admissions of a woman who had realized too late the consequences of her desperate choices. She was sentenced to life in prison, and Mark's children would forever be left with the scars of what their mother had done. In the end, Kate's life was shattered by her own choices. The perfect facade she had built for years crumbled in an instant, and she was left with nothing, except the haunting memory of the man she killed and the family she destroyed. What do you think? Could you ever imagine someone you love committing such a horrific crime? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Unsolved Case Vault for more shocking true crime stories. Until next time, stay vigilant, and stay aware of the people closest to you.